Hello, welcome to the 12th edition of Beach Soccer Talks. I'm Sarah Kempson, current England international and England captain. I'm really excited today to talk to you about women's beach soccer, and we have a really talented panel with us today. So I'd just like to, for them to introduce themselves. So if I come to Barbara first, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Barbara Colodetti. I'm player of the Brazilian national team. I played for teams from Italy, Hungary, Poland, and Russia. It's a pleasure to be here with these girls.
Thank you, Barbara. And Luisa, if we come to you next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Luisa. I'm from California. I play for NorCal. I'm currently in the pool for the US team as well. I played for Sporting Lisbon as well. So good to be here.
Thank you very much. And finally, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie James. I'm an England player as well, and I've played for teams across Europe, and I've been playing since 2016.
Thanks, girls. I'm really excited to have such a talented panel to talk today, and so much experience as well from all the girls. So hopefully it's interesting for you guys to watch. And if we now start the presentation. So the presentation today, as I said, is going to be based around women's beach soccer. And we're going to be looking at the past, present and future of women's beach soccer. The past in terms of the evolution of the game, how the game has got to where it is today. The present in terms of what does women's beach soccer look like now, and what standout things are there in the game that we're really proud of and that we want to keep doing. And in terms of the future, where is women's beach soccer going to be heading, and how do we want the game to continue to develop in the future? So hopefully, as I said, really exciting. And firstly, we're going to start off with the past. So over the kind of last 10 years, I've played beach soccer just shy of 10 years. And personally, I've seen a massive development in the game, not only in terms of number of players playing the game, number of teams, but also number of international teams which have come onto the stage. So for me, the number of tournaments, teams and players has vastly increased. From the pictures on here, you can see you've got teams such as Switzerland in the top right, who I consider to be probably my pioneers of beach soccer when I first started playing. They were the team that I first ever played against and really looked up to in terms of how to play beach soccer, how to learn a new sport, all the way until kind of current day, where we've got teams like Cape Verde in the top middle, and also Brazil, who both showcased at the World Beach Games last year, and Brazil medalled at their first major tournament. So you can see that the game has massively developed in terms of number of players and the direction we're going in. It's increasing as a sport. So with that in mind, my question to the panel would be the following. How has women's beach soccer changed over the last decade? So I'll come to Barbara first, because I know Barbara has a lot of experience within beach soccer for a long time. How has the game changed for you? Is there anything that you think really stands out?
I think change with a combination of factors like these ones. The physical and technical level has increased with more opportunities, exchange of players, tournaments. The players are getting more experience, and it's also increased the level. And more teams are participating in the formation of the women's national teams is important for this process. All of this is important for development and evolution of our sport.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree. I think more teams at the elite level is how the game's going to push forward. So I completely agree. International is the way forward, I think. Luisa, relatively new to kind of international beach soccer. I know America only formed last year. So I think my question to you is a little bit different. What were your expectations of women's beach soccer coming into the game? Is there anything that kind of surprised you in a way?
Yeah, for sure. I think, coming into it relatively new as a player in the past like 3-4 years, getting to more of an international level. And I think with the process of the US team starting and last year for myself taking a break due to injury, seeing how many more experienced players have happened in the past year is highly motivational, I think, for the US and for other countries to develop, as Barbara said, their national teams. And then I think domestically to develop within the national team is going to take the game to the next level.
Yeah, I think I kind of try and keep tabs of what other nations are doing all the time. And often I see the American girls not only going out and training themselves, but a lot of them have set up like camps for younger players and trying to get youth playing, which I think is key as well to the future of the sport, that we get more youth and grassroots level. So I think America have really burst onto the scene in that sense and try to, I don't know if you think the same in terms of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of us are coaches ourselves, so we want to get our young girls involved, and sparking that interest very young, I think, is important for the future of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of technical and tactical development, I
absolutely
agree.
Yeah.
From my personal perspective, I think the game has completely changed over kind of the last 8 or 9 years. And for me, it's no longer women just playing beach soccer, turning up and just playing on the sand. I think the game has now got a direction, and the players are really striving that direction in terms of where they want it to go. And I think definitely in the last couple of years, I see more players trying to create a more beautiful game. So we're really trying to think about what makes beach soccer the game it is, the technical expertise, the bicycle kicks, all of those things. And I'm seeing that more and more in the last couple of years. So for me, that level of technique has massively improved. And in terms of physicality as well, I think Barbara touched on it, the physical and tactical knowledge of players is vastly kind of developed as well. So thank you for all your opinions on that. We're now going to move on to the present. Now we know the history of the game. For those people who maybe weren't aware, I want to discuss present day with the girls. So I think the key question for me is, what do you think are the standout features to present day beach soccer? I'm just going to wait for the next slide to come up for you. So these kind of the areas that I thought maybe stood out to me. If I come to Katie, what would you highlight as the standout feature within present day women's beach soccer?
I think Luisa and Barbara have both touched on it, but participation, I think, in terms of the nations now involved. A couple of years ago when I first started 2016, it was kind of just the European stage, and now we've got like world events, and that led to the World Beach Games last year, which obviously was a huge event for female beach soccer. Also, like tactical awareness, I think there's been a huge improvement in game plans and the way teams are setting up, and it's becoming more of a tactical battle rather than just kind of going out and playing the game and seeing what happens. And also in terms of evolution of sort of patterns of play and things like that, it used to be very much like what we call in England as level 1 beach soccer, heading it back to the goalkeeper, throwing long, and kind of the standard set play. But there's more variation in sort of the way teams play now, and in terms of floor play, aerial, 3 across the back, using the goalkeeper's feet. It's come a long way since obviously what you spoke about before in the past of the female game.
Yeah, I think we talk about that a lot in England, how we first started out and how we really want to kind of push on from there and learn from other teams. I think, Katie, you've got great experience in playing abroad, and every time one of our players goes abroad and plays for a new team, they come back with all this kind of new knowledge and ways they think, actually, I might want to try that, add that to the game. And that's the beauty, I think, of beach soccer, because we're all learning from each other and picking up other teams' kind of ways and styles of play. So that's quite nice as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on some of these key areas here. As I said, I think these are real kind of key factors that have improved in the game. So if we start off firstly with bicycle kicks, I think we're all fairly aware that bicycle kicks are the kind of what spectators want to see in the game. Every time we go to a tournament, this is what the crowd wants to see, and it's the most exciting way to score. And for me, it shows the highest kind of level of technical ability. If you can bike and you can bike well, then it can really show off the expertise of the game. So I suppose my question, I'm going to come to Barbara on the panel for this one, is do you think there's been an increase in bicycle kicks in the game? If so, why?
No, yes. The teams are training, the girls are improving, and I also see the evolution. The bicycle kick is our danger, a real chance of goal or fall. And speaking of, was a defender, it was difficult, and we also train to defend well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree in that sense. We always say it's a really difficult thing to defend. I think the defender's always put in a difficult situation. I think if it's a good bicycle kick, it's hard to defend. And I think that's the level now, that if we can get that technical level higher for the bicycle kicks, then they are harder to defend. Next question is to Katie now. We're going to watch a little video of Katie's bicycle kick goal, which she scored. And I want Katie to kind of discuss, if she can, how do you think bicycle kicks have changed the way teams attack and defend? Have they changed the game in any way, being kind of included within the game?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and especially in this video, the ball kind of took a nice bounce, and my instinct was to bike. And I think 2-3 years ago, my instincts probably control that. Can I pass the ball? Can I turn and shoot? So I think definitely in terms of natural instinct, it's becoming more and more prevalent in the women's game to just bike, and especially with first-time bikes. I think especially when you play teams like Brazil and Spain, and I think Gemma Hillier and Molly Clark are very good at it also, is the first-time bike. And it's the speed of decision to bike, which I think makes it very difficult now for defenders to defend, especially when you've got the likes of, I don't know, for me, Molly Clark, defending her in training, she's got her back to goal. I know she can turn, I know she can bike, and it's becoming more and more challenging to defend players like that who have got both in their locker.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think for me, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of instinct. I think the longer female players are spending on sand now, you've got some really experienced players. This just becomes natural. But that comes from hard work and training. And as you said, you probably didn't even think about biking here, but this is what we want to see more of. We want to see players technically able to just kind of pull this out. I've watched you, Katie, in training. And I know you can hit 10 bikes in the row top corner without asking, but being able to put it into a game, that's the pressurized situation. So it's great to see in the women's game this level, and because I know players can do it, so we want to see more of it in the game. And I think from a personal perspective, in terms of bicycle kicks, I think it's changed. I think Barbara touched on it at the start. It's no longer players are still biking to get a foul, but I don't think players are biking just to get fouls now. I think they've got the technical ability to bike and score, and it becomes almost impossible to defend at times, but because you are afraid of the foul, even though defenders are getting better, I suppose. But it is really difficult to defend. And I know when we're at England training and Hannah Houghton's in goal, our goalkeeper, and we're biking it, well, not necessarily me, but other players are biking against her. She hates it, absolutely hates it. She can't see the ball. So I think if we can push it in the game, it's great to see that there's more of it happening, but really push it, then I think it will be a real really good for the spectators moving forward. So hopefully we'll see more bikes in the future. As I said, we're definitely seeing in the women's game, it's something that players are capable of doing. The next section we're going to look at is goalkeepers. Okay, so we're going to have a little talk about how we think the development of goalkeepers has changed. I might just need to, there we go, we'll shift it on one. For me personally, goalkeepers has been one of the biggest changes in the sport. I'd like to hear your opinions on it in a second. I definitely think this has been a huge part of the game that has developed. And if I come to Barbara first, do you think goalkeepers, how do you think goalkeepers have changed? Do you think they're using their feet more? And how do you think that's impacting the game?
I think it's a big change and creates a lot of opportunity for the game. It's one more player. It gives you adventure and condition for a kick, open space for the pass, and many goalkeepers already do this. Like goalkeepers from Russia and Lily Lopes from Brazil do it well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you speak of the Brazilian keeper, and like, you know, straight away when we played against Brazil, we knew she was technically good with her feet, and it creates a whole nother level to the game, that 5v4 attack. So I think you're completely right. It does make a difference, and we have definitely seen an improvement in it. My next question is to Luisa. I'm going to play the video on the next slide, which is, as Barbara mentioned, the Russian goalkeeper. Can you just talk us through the use of the goalkeeper in this goal and what role you think they have?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see here, as we saw just a second ago, the goalkeeper's bringing it out with her feet. That's one technical ability that is really important for the goalkeeper, just to guide it along the sand. And as she's guiding it, you can kind of see all the players moving away. And as the players are moving away, that's creating an opportunity for her to have a bit more time to flick it up so that she has an opportunity to shoot. And as you said, Sarah, before, you can see the keepers bringing it out. The players are backing away, and it gives her that space and time to shoot, as well as the Russian players are moving forward, which is blocking the other opposing keeper's view. So in that aspect, it's having that extra player, right? 5v4. And it's detrimental to the game to have a keeper that can play with their feet. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the Dutch players here would probably be a little disappointed maybe with the strike going in, but it just goes to show the confidence of the keeper can really dictate a game. I know I've watched this game. I know you've watched this game, and Selena completely controlled the game. Every time she got the ball, drove out as far as she could, and it made the Dutch players think. And we've played against the Russians many times, and it really you have to think about their tactics. And the fact that you're seeing keepers be more and more successful at this is great, really. So yeah, completely agree.
Absolutely.
What we're going to have a little look at now is if Katie can have a little chat about the next video, which is a different kind of style of the goalkeeper using the ball, not necessarily striking it. But if you can just talk through the role of the goalkeeper and how important this is.
Yeah, I think similar to the last video where she's flicked it and had a shot, the two Holland players have now narrowed off to shut off that option, which then gives the two wide players obviously the space. And fair play to the Russian goalkeeper who's identified that. She's played it to Fedorova, who is technically probably one of the most gifted players in the game. And like Luisa said, it's creating those overloads, recognizing the overloads. And as players get technically more proficient, there's going to be more and more opportunities for shots like this from deeper areas. One thing that I would say probably going forward in terms of goalkeepers is consistent decision making. I think under pressure, consistently making the right decisions and playing the right ball is something that really needs to sort of improve to take the game to the next level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that comes from playing in pressurized situations. We speak about, for example, the American national team and Brazilian national team have had one major competition, and the more major competitions and the more tournaments you get under your belt, the more confident you are. You can see Selena in goal is really confident on the ball because she's played in so many tournaments, and she completely backs herself that she can bring the ball up to halfway and she knows what she's doing. So, I mean, I think if that's an area of the game we can continue to press, I definitely think it's an area for improvement. I was just wondering, Katie, if you had any kind of extra thoughts on in terms of not just keepers improving their feet, but in terms of the physicality, the strength of the keepers' throws. Do you think there's been any change or any real standout moments in present beach soccer from those things?
I think the physicality in terms of goalkeepers now, because they can use their feet, they do have more of a demand to get across their box. And I know for me playing with Hannah Houghton, sometimes I'll tell her to stay further away from me and give me the space, and then she has to be obviously physically able to get across the sand and move in case I need her or don't need her close to me. So yeah, I think in terms of that, it's definitely improved. And throwing, most keepers now can make the 9 meter or further, and that wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago. I think goalkeepers were struggling to get the distance, and if not the accuracy. So I think those two things are now something that have definitely come into the goalkeeper's game.
Yeah, I think I agree with the throw. I think the throw is massively improved. And I think for me, the tactical impact of a goalkeeper is huge. If you've got a goalkeeper that can read the game and control the game, then you're in a really good position. And then on top of that, if you've got a goalkeeper who's really has got the foundations, being able to save the ball, being able to make good last ditch saves and be adaptable to the sand, the bounce on the sand as well, then that's a massive thing as well. So I think we're seeing that a lot with the goalkeepers now, that there's that level of technical ability there. So hopefully kind of we continue to see more goalkeepers enter the game and goalkeepers develop further. And then the next section we were going to look at is talking about free kicks and set pieces. And free kicks are probably my favorite thing in beach soccer. It's something that I love to do and something I really kind of enjoy practicing as well. So my first question is to Barbara. Kind of my opinion on free kicks is that more free kicks are being scored. The technical ability now for players is so vast that you don't really want to give away a free kick in any of the kind of attacking areas or defensive areas. Do you agree that more free kicks are being scored, and why do you think that's changed in women's beach soccer? Why are we having more success from free kicks?
Yes, it's a great chance to score, complicated for the goalkeepers. And I believe the players are training more and improving and taking more advantage of this real opportunity to score.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for me, even in this kind of situation here for this free kick here, this free kick is a tremendous free kick. This is, I think, probably one of the biggest spectated women's games, high pressure game for the World Beach Games qualifiers. Marissa scores a fantastic free kick, and she didn't just do this once in this tournament, she did this over and over again. So for me, the technical ability under pressure in the big scenario, big situations has become massively improved. I do think it's definitely an area of the game which has been well practiced and drilled into us. You get a free kick, you got to score it. My next question is to Katie. Coming away from free kicks, we talk about set pieces quite a lot, so free kicks, corners, throw-ins. Do you think there's perhaps a lack of goals from throw-ins and corners? What are your opinion on other set pieces?
I think, like you said, like free kicks have definitely improved across the board. But I think in terms of set pieces, so throw-ins and corners, I know for me, every team that I've played for in Europe, whether that be Italy, Spain, Poland, they all put sort of an emphasis on practicing corner routines, throw-in routines. But in terms of success in games, I think it's very minimal. And I'm not sure whether that's kind of down to composure or decision-making under pressure, but it seems that those sort of scenarios that we practice in training don't really come off in the game. So whether that's a case of maybe just, like I said earlier, instinct and letting the players make their own decisions might be a better way of going about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the 4 seconds has a massive impact. I think there's a real psychological factor there, the pressure of playing in 4 seconds, and sport we know is all about decision making. And you mentioned it earlier with keepers making the right decisions, and I think that 4 seconds really has an impact. And I mean, I would suggest that the more you play at a higher level, the better your decisions become, because it's becoming more autonomous. I don't know if Luisa, you would agree kind of with the pressure side of it. What's kind of your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to do it in a training and a scrimmage, but it's a whole nother element when you can't hear anything in the stadium and you don't know where the ref is and you don't know what the timing is and you feel rushed, right? And it's that mental strength to train yourself and the experience to train yourself to take a moment. And sometimes you have a lot longer than you think to like relax your brain so that you can make the right decisions and choices. But I think, as you guys have said, all of you, it just takes more experience in the game at a higher level to get that confidence, whether it's doing a free kick, a throw in, like a set piece.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it is. That's exactly it. It's the psychological edge, isn't it? And I think even I've been playing for eight years, and as soon as you kind of get a throw in, sometimes you make a decision. You think, oh, I don't know why I did that. This is such a good opportunity. So I definitely think, as Katie said, it's practice, but perhaps it needs to be practiced more and more under those pressured situations. So yeah, definitely agree. Our next kind of topic area is technical development. So coming away from free kicks, bicycle kicks, the actual kind of technical skills, but more so the overall technical development of the game. I just want to kind of come to you first, Luisa. How do you think the game has technically developed? Because we've said it all the way through this, that's been the major change to women's beach soccer, but how do you think it has developed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in my first international playing experience was in Tobago, and Katie, you were there playing with Shoreline. And our NorCal team, we were grass players, and we played really well playing sand here in California. And when we went to Tobago, we actually finally encountered what real beach soccer was, and it was a lot of aerial play. And we were completely shocked because that's not how we grew up playing. We played on grass. So to see that aerial play, and I think to see it develop over my career is amazing. So I think aerial play is a massive part of beach soccer, and being able to do that. And Barbara, in Brazil, you guys are like so good at it, and it's beautiful. That's what makes the game so beautiful for me, is to see players that are technically able to play the ball in the air and very confidently. And I think it's only going to develop more and more as each player gets better technically to be able to play in the air.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the direction, isn't it? The aerial play. Like when you see when you're watching a game and you see the ball stay in the air and a combination, that's when real beach soccer happens. And
absolutely,
and it's the best thing to watch. I don't know what your thoughts, Katie, are on in terms of if you were to kind of think about the areas that still are yet to be developed, or areas of weakness. What would you say are the areas of weakness technically still in the game?
I think, like you said, it is aerial play. It's getting better, but I think, as we spoke about already, in terms of pressurized situations, it's okay. I don't know, in a group keeping the ball up. I think everyone can do that now, and the game is technically there, where players can keep the ball in the air. It's just, can you do that with a player on your back? Can you still make the same pass? Can you still hit the same shot? So it's just a case of developing that under pressure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's always difficult because we always say if the ball goes down, it's okay. If the ball does hit the sand, because it's a game of football, there's physicality, or beach soccer in effect, there's physicality. So it's okay for it to go down. It's just having that confidence to then reset and know tactically what the next step is. So I do agree on that. And I think for me, like, technically, if you look at situations like this video here, World Beach Game Qualifier again, this for me is technically top draw. Okay, it's an absolute brilliant technical ability to shoot from that range under that pressure in that kind of cauldron environment. And it's an absolutely fantastic goal. And I think the development of players to do this consistently is getting there, and we're seeing some amazing goals at top level now, and some real technical expertise. But I suppose for me that it's the combination. So we're seeing a lot of goals that are coming from individual flair, and now it's the combination of teams coming together and playing the ball and keeping it aerially together as combination players, Katie mentioned. And I think when I know for a fact when I'm facing teams like Russia, who are defensively so strong, you're going to flick that ball up and strike, and they're going to be there. So it's having that adaptation. I don't know whether you think anything about combination play, Katie, whether you think combination play is an area which, is it down to pressure? Is it down to game environment? Is it happening elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it's not just pressure. I think it's having the tactical awareness of where to run next. And I think this is something Brazil are very good at, is they play a pass, and they're not just admiring their pass, they're making the next movement, and they're all in sync of where to go when who's got the ball and things like that. So it's not just doing it under pressure. I think it's just knowing where to be tactically when someone does have the ball, and getting in position so you can combine.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And the physicality that comes with that, we're seeing now players that are so much fitter than when we all started first playing beach soccer. It's such a new sport. 10 years ago, players coming onto the sand, and now players are sand fit. So we're seeing players able to do that kind of tactical evolution as well. So I think in terms of technical, we know there has definitely been an improvement, and we know there's areas for development still. My next kind of topic area is tactical evolution, and we've touched on this a little bit already about how we think that tactically the game has changed. So I think there's always a link technically and tactically, and they do run side by side. But I'll come to you first, Katie. What do you think what tactical development have we seen? What are the major things for you that stand out? I know you've mentioned it previously, but if you could fine tune that for us.
Yeah, I think one of the big things now is I think each country is developing their own sort of brand of beach soccer. For instance, Brazil, combination play, they've got flair. Russians, they're kind of resilient in the way they play. And Americans, physical, you always know you're going to be in for a physical battle with the Americans. And also sort of formations, and now the use of goalkeepers, which we talked about earlier. I know we use our goalkeepers' feet, the Brazilians do, the Russians do. And another tactical development, I think, which Spain have mastered this year is the 3-1 formation. The way they shift the ball across the back with 3 players. I think that's sort of the first I've seen of that on the international stage and it be executed. And teams are definitely becoming more adaptable in their style based on the opposition they're playing. So it's not just this is how we play and that's it. For us, like if we play a team and we know they're particularly good at a certain way of playing or they're good at defending in a certain way, then we will look at ways we can sort of exploit those areas of weakness or defend them as such.
Yeah, and I suppose that comes back down to experience, doesn't it? You know, being able to kind of spot what we're going to change in the game and how we can counter other teams or try to counter other teams. My kind of second question is using these 6 areas, which I think for me are kind of key to tactical evolution. Luisa, what do you think in terms of preparing for games and tournaments? What do you think now is key, or what do you believe coaches focus on when they're thinking about their opponents? If you could maybe discuss some of these 6 factors.
Yeah, absolutely. So this last year, 2019, I had to take a rest because I had a knee injury. So I stepped in as coach of NorCal. So I definitely can see that this is a massive element of the game. And when we went to the World Winners' Cup in October, a lot of game film. We watched a lot of film on our opponent, seeing how they played tactically. And obviously we had to adapt our formations depending on which team we played, especially with Russia, as we were talking about goalkeepers, and their goalkeeper was very good with her feet. So we had to make adjustments of how they played. So I think more and more learning the technical aspect or tactical aspect of the game is more important, especially getting to the next level and the future of the game. And I think by watching a lot of game film, that helps you to learn different formations and different cultural styles that each country has and what they bring into the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's something that's been drilled into us and the England national team to watch film back. And I know Katie is always obsessed with watching beach soccer all the time, but she is so tactically aware now. So she'll tell me things that teams have done, and I'll be thinking, how do you know this? But it's because she's continually watching. I suppose that's the best way to learn, to watch other teams.
Yeah, and be obsessed with it and watch it and replicate that. And what's in your mind usually replicates in your body, right? So it translates.
Exactly, I completely agree. My other question to you, Luisa, is: do you think there's maybe culturally some teams have certain cultural aspects that are kind of ingrained in their play? We talk about this a lot on grass. Different have different kind of cultural aspects, but in beach soccer, is that formed now?
I think so. I mean, I played in Europe, grass, in Portugal, and in England. There's a definitely style to each country's play, and I think beach is the same. I think Katie touched on it. Americans, we grow up to be physical and fit and strong. That's just part of our culture. And I think in England, you guys play a more like simplistic way, but very effective. And Brazil has that flair, right? Like, and it's well known. And I think from grass, but also beach, it translates. And I think, and that's what's unique about this game is that each new country with a new national team that comes up is going to bring another unique style and cultural element to their game.
Yeah, and I think for me, I love the fact that there's now identity within the sport.
Yeah.
Now we've got to that stage, seeing it develop over the last 10 years. There's teams that have got identity. There's players that have got identities within the sport. And that's the massive step, I think, moving forward. The kind of next thing I want to talk about, and this is, I think, kind of almost a difficult question for some of you to answer, but I'm hoping you're going to give me a really honest answer. So obviously here we've got some amazing beach soccer players from around the world, and kind of key countries that are really, really kind of blossoming in beach soccer, and teams as well, like Switzerland, who've been around for a long time, and the Spanish team, etc., etc. So my question to you guys is, if you were to kind of think of maybe one opponent or one team, who is your toughest opponent right now in beach soccer? Who are the people that are making or stepping onto the world stage and really making an impact? So I'll come to Luisa first. Who do you think?
So I think for me, and when I was coaching, Molly Clark, she's a phenomenal player. And I think Katie touched on it. Like when someone's defending, she can turn or she can bike, and she's so strong in her ability and her technical skill. It makes it very difficult to defend. And I think obviously the England team, you guys have been strong for a long time, and I can see you guys developing. But Brazil too, I mean, that kind of flair and that confidence that they have on the ball, and to see them moving it around, I think that's a very difficult thing to have the mental capacity to be that creative and that confident on the field in a high pressure situation. And I think Brazil has a lot of players that have that in them, and I can see their future going further and further.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think the cultural aspect of the Brazilian players, I love it. I love the fact that Brazil have a national team now, because we all knew that the female players that came from Brazil were so technically gifted. We'd seen them on the club stage, but now to have that national team. And probably my favorite ever game I've ever played a beach soccer, sorry Barbara, was the semi-final of the World Beach Games. And to me, that was just, you know, an absolute showcase of what women's beach soccer can be. And you could feel it that day, that how kind of intense it was as a game, and the technical ability on show. So, you know, I think having teams like that into the world stage is amazing, and I hope more and more teams, I know there's a lot of work going on to get more teams, we've got the players, and getting them out there. So Barbara, I'll come to you now. What do you think in terms of toughest opponents or teams or experiences?
I think it's really difficult to play against England, Spain, and Russia. They are different ways to play each other, but have a strong group and have been playing together for a long, and have a special players. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I think you've touched on experience there, and I think that is key, isn't it? Experience at the top level for a long time, and we're really lucky as a national team. And I think the Russians and Spanish are saying we've had a kind of core set of players that have really built the foundation of the sport, and you can see that on the international stage under pressure. So yeah, I completely agree on your kind of choices there. Katie, how about you?
I think there's different challenges to every team you face. The Swiss, for instance, they know the game inside and out. They've been playing it the longest, so playing them is always a challenge. The Russians, physically, mentally, probably the strongest team I've played. I personally didn't play in the Brazil game, but watching their rotation and the way they keep the ball up on the move and things like that, I can see why that's obviously a threat, and it's going to be so difficult to play against in the future. But for me, a team that have kind of combined all of those things and almost master different elements of it at the moment, I think is Spain. And I think they've been our toughest opposition in the last year. I think they really came sort of to the top of the European stage last year. Obviously we won in Salou, but the Euro Winners' Cup was a Spanish team. The World Beach Games was Spain. And I think towards the latter end of last year, they were hard to beat.
Yeah, and I think we speak about key players a lot, and Carol Gonzalez, World Player of the Year last year, had such a good season. So it's down to the team and the individuals and kind of all those aspects coming together. I completely agree with you guys. I think for me, you know, anytime I'm playing against any international team, you know, there's going to be challenges, and I think probably for the first time in a long time last year, I felt like there were so many teams that were so challenging to play against, and everyone's really coming up to that top level now. So it's a really exciting time for women's beach soccer, and a really exciting time both for the European and international stage. So I'm hoping, you know, we all want a World Cup at some point, but I think the spectacle there is going to be amazing. So yeah, I think for me, I can't really pick out teams because I think there's a lot of teams, but key players that you guys have mentioned do stand out as well. So Thanks for answering. So honestly, I know it's a tough question, being kind of to pick out some key players, because we know there's so many. But my kind of next stage to this is the future, and looking forward to the future of women's beach soccer and where it's going to go. So my first question to you guys is for coaches, in terms of when coaches are looking at the game. I'll come to Katie for this one first. Do you think, I'll come to Barbara first for this one. For coaches, what is now the most important element of the game to coach? Because there might be coaches watching now, as players we think this too, but what do you think? Is it tactical, technical, psychological, or the physical aspects?
I think one complements the other. Everyone is important, but if the psychological is not well, nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. I think we talk about all four sides of this a lot, and we often analyze where we're strong and where we're weak. We've spoken a lot today about the technical development of the sport. I think I would argue that other elements, sometimes we've got the tactical has been developed. I think the psychological is a real key element now to nail down the pressure at the top level and playing more international tournaments. I know, Luisa, you're nodding. If you've got anything
Yes,
go
absolutely. Especially with the US team, it's so unexperienced and so just very new. And, although you can have these, the technical ability, the tactical awareness, and we're physically strong, but the psychological, to be able to mentally translate what you do at training to do it at the international level is a whole nother aspect. I know with NorCal, with the first time that we went to a big tournament at the World Winners Cup, we had a lot of psychological sessions pre going to the tournament, just to make sure all the players were really ready mentally to take on that next challenge, because it's a whole nother level to play at an international stage. And as the players and the teams are developing higher and higher, the stress level is harder, right? So I think having that mental, psychological strength is super important to the beach game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of female players have played grass football at a high level. You know, a lot of the transfer is you've got top grass players playing women's beach soccer. But I think the first time you step on the sand, that is stripped away because it's a completely different sport. So you have to you will have your base technical, but everything else has to develop. And I agree with you, psychological is really important, I think, at every level, however new you are. Katie, if I come to you now, do you think any certain teams are specializing in any of these areas, or if someone's out there now thinking, okay, I want to work on my team's tactical ability, who would you highlight as a team for people to focus on in terms of these areas here?
I think a couple of the teams that we've mentioned already. So, for instance, Brazil and Spain, I think technically are probably two of the most gifted teams on the world stage. The way they can shift the ball, their execution of their game plans and things like that. I think Brazil and Spain in particular. In terms of tactical, for me, I think Russia. I always fear Russia a little bit just because of their tactical awareness and the use of their goalkeeper and just how organised they are out of possession. It's really difficult to break a Russian team down. And also, like I said before, Americans, the physical battle. You're all trained to be athletes from a very early age. So playing you guys is always a challenge in that element. And I think for us as a nation, psychologically, I think we're very strong. I think Kempo mentioned earlier, and sorry again, Barbara, but the semi-final against Brazil, be on a world stage in a situation where I think at one point I don't know, can't remember what the score.
5-2, I think we were down.
Yeah, and to come back in that game in a semi-final with, at the time, we had 2 less players who were out, banned. I think, like just things like that have really tested us psychologically and pushed us, I think, to the forefront of that.
I think that game kind of, for me, I think if I hadn't have played as many international tournaments previously where we've lost in the last minute, or, I've seen Molly Clark score a goal with 0.3 seconds on the clock. I've seen, beach soccer is an amazing sport, which does kind of emotionally, it's a roller coaster. So I think that psychological edge comes from those experiences of the game isn't over until the end. And I think, I'm sure in the future, Brazil will get us back in a similar similar situation where it will be kind of reversed. It will happen. There'll be times where that psychological edge it swings one way or the other. So I think, yeah, I think you're right in terms of your viewpoints there, Katie, and I agree on the tactical element for Russia, technical element for Spain as well. I think they're definitely the teams, if people want to think about people's expertise, they're the teams to watch in these areas. So kind of my last questions for the future to kind of sum up the presentation is women's beach soccer moving forward. I think nearly 10 years in the sport, I hope in 10 years time I'm still just about playing, but I know for me I want it to be a legacy. I want women's beach soccer to continue to strive and move forward. I think we will play a really important role. All women's beach soccer players now play an important role in that. So my first question is for Barbara. What do you want beach soccer to look like in the next decade? What do we want the game to be?
I hope there are more team players, national teams formed, players having more opportunities, and a Women's World Cup. Why not? Yeah,
yeah. Every time I think we have the opportunity, we mention a Women's World Cup. I know we all want it, and I think you're right in terms of more players. I think at a grassroots level, you know, it's great to see, and we see it through social media all the time, the American girls going out and coaching players. I know in England we do camps with players, young players, to build the game, and we're seeing that more and more worldwide, and that I think is key as well. So Katie, second question for you: what areas do you feel should be of focus moving forward for women's beach soccer?
I think, like you said, the thing we want is a Women's World Cup, and I think to get there we need to just increase participation across the board, whether that be in the youth, more nations, I think more tournaments, especially world events. I know we've had a lot of experience playing European teams, but coming up against the likes of Brazil and USA always pose different threats. But I think specifically in terms of gameplay and things like that, tactical, technical, sort of decision making under pressure, those sort of elements need to improve. I think that should be a focus going forward for teams, because I think core foundations of sort of your technical ability, game understanding, those things are now improving and getting there. It's just executing what you train in a game situation.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know, Luisa, I know you've had the opportunity to play across the world now. And I think I remember having conversations with the NorCal girls about 2 years ago. And I said, you know, go and get beach soccer wherever you can play, find a team, you know, get hold of teams and play as much as you can. And you've definitely kind of, that's how I think the Americans have really stamped on the world stage. You went and got it, which is how you do it. How do you think moving forward, how are we going to make it happen? How are we going to push the game forward?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for your advices, both like you, Sarah, and Katie, when you guys come and play, usually against us here. But just speaking with you guys after, and, you know, like getting really good advice on how we can take the game to the next level, especially here in the US. Like, I'm very grateful for all the advice that you have given us over the past few years. As far as the question, how do we make that happen? I think Barbara, you know, touched on it a bit. I think with the more development of more national teams globally, I think that's going to help the game grow on an international scale. And within each team internationally to grow a domestic league. So as we've said, this whole talk, you know, I think what you can do in training, you have to replicate in game. And the more game you can play, the better that you're able to play in a bigger tournament. So developing more local domestic leagues, I think it's really important to develop the game on how we can make it happen to better the situation for the women in the future. And I think also, to be really honest, is just a lot of sponsorship. It takes money to make these things happen. Recently in California, we have a new professional women's team that developed in Los Angeles, and it's ran all female with a lot of famous actresses, Natalie Portman, Serena Williams, a famous tennis player. So I think having really good sponsorship, whether it's within, you know, just athletes or companies or any kind of area organization that wants to put more effort into the development of the women's game, I think is gonna lead us to how we're gonna grow in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you know, when we came out and spoke to you a few years ago, we said to you that, you know, it's really important as female beach soccer players for everyone to become ambassadors of the sport, because the only way the sport grows is by working together.
Yes.
And, you know, we were really, really sure that you guys would end up with an American team. And we said to you, you will have a team. It will happen. Keep going, keep going.
Yeah, I remember.
And I think moving forward, that is the key thing. I remember having those conversations with Barbara as well, saying it's going to happen. You just got to keep going and keep working for it. And I think the real key point you mentioned about sponsorship, I think, in terms of getting sponsorship and working towards those things, I think a lot of the time in women's beach soccer it is difficult. So being able to share those experiences and being able to create almost a community within women's beach soccer where we do help each other in terms of developing the sport is really key. I think for me, I really want to strive the game forward, and you could be selfish and think I just want to play and I want, but in 10 years time I want there to still be an England beach soccer team ranked as high as possible. So all of us need to be ambassadors of the sport, and all of us need to strive it forward. And so for me, that's a massive thing for the next 10 years. The current players have such a responsibility to move the game forward. So you're nodding, which is good. But yeah, so I think that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. On women's beach soccer currently, as I said, it's such an exciting time. This last 10 years have been incredible. You know, we've got new international teams and new players, and it's at the highest level it's been. So I hope that continues. And I want to say a massive thank you to the panel today. It's great to have a panel of experts and all female panel represented as well. Is absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.